Nobody warned Alex Eala that the hardest part of Wimbledon wouldn't happen on the court. She had already done the impossible. Weeks of electric tennis. Matches that had people screaming at their televisions in Manila, in London, in living rooms halfway around the world. A run so extraordinary that even die-hard fans who had watched Wimbledon for decades were sitting up straighter in their chairs. And then it ended. Aryna Sabalenka across the net. Jasmine Paolini in the draw. A loss that stung, yes, but a tournament that had already changed everything. What nobody knew, not the press, not the fans, not even Alex herself, was that the most jaw-dropping moment of her entire Wimbledon campaign had nothing to do with tennis. When she walked off center court that afternoon, head held high, she looked like someone who understood exactly what she had accomplished. Defeat or not, she had carved her name into Wimbledon history. As one of the first Filipino players to leave this kind of mark on the tournament, she had won something no scoreboard could measure: the genuine admiration of the tennis world. Her playing style was fearless. Her composure under pressure was almost unnerving. And the humility she carried off the court made people root for her in a way that felt deeply personal. Waiting for her backstage was Catherine, Princess of Wales. The princess had been watching closely, not just casually, but closely tracking Alex's journey match by match. What began as a warm exchange of congratulations quickly became something more. Catherine praised her for the example she had set, for the way she had represented the Philippines with dignity and grace under an enormous amount of pressure. And just as the conversation felt like it was winding down, it took a turn no one saw coming. Catherine smiled and said that King Charles himself would be honored to welcome Alex to Buckingham Palace. Alex Eala froze. She stood there in stunned silence, running the words back through her mind. Buckingham Palace. The king. An invitation. It didn't feel real. It felt like the kind of thing you tell your grandchildren one day, half laughing, because surely it couldn't have actually happened. But Catherine reassured her the royal family had watched her performances, and this wasn't courtesy. This was genuine admiration. Her Wimbledon campaign had ended on the court, but somehow, impossibly, a brand new chapter was just beginning. Word spread fast. Within hours, social media in both Britain and the Philippines was alive with the news. Filipino fans who had already been electric throughout the tournament celebrated like their player had won the whole thing. Because in many ways, to them, she had. This wasn't just recognition of one young athlete. It felt like recognition of an entire nation's passion, pride, and growing presence on the world stage. Even people close to Sabalenka reportedly marveled at how quickly Alex Eala had become one of Wimbledon's biggest international stories. Grand Slam coverage usually revolves around champions and trophies. This was something else entirely. The day of the palace visit arrived. Alex was welcomed by members of the royal household and escorted through grounds steeped in centuries of history. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt cold or transactional. Every detail had been arranged with genuine care, the kind of care that tells a visitor, "You matter here." She was guided through magnificent reception rooms where portraits of monarchs and statesmen lined the walls, and the air itself seemed to carry the weight of history. It wasn't just impressive. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. Then came the afternoon tea. Delicate pastries, fine sandwiches, beautiful china. Members of the palace staff sharing stories about the royal residence and Britain's long love affair with international sport. It was the kind of afternoon that doesn't seem like it belongs in a real person's life, and yet, there she was. And then King Charles walked in. The room shifted. That mixture of formality and warmth that only royalty can create settled over everything. But what struck those present wasn't the ceremony of the moment, it was what the king chose to say. He didn't just talk about tennis. He talked about what Alex Eala represented. He told her that true greatness isn't measured only in championships, but in character, in perseverance, and in the ability to give other people hope. He said that exceptional athletes become ambassadors for their countries long before they ever realize it. Alex thanked him. She admitted, quietly, that she never imagined a tennis tournament would one day bring her to this room, standing in front of the King of England. The conversation grew. It expanded beyond sport into education, cultural exchange, youth development, the kinds of things that matter long after the last match has been played. And those listening began to understand that this invitation had never really been about tennis at all. By this point, Alex Eala had become one of the most recognizable Filipino athletes in the world. Millions were following her. Television audiences surged whenever she played. Commentators began to suggest that the palace visit was a gesture that extended far beyond honoring one player. It was a celebration of the Filipino people who had shown up literally and passionately for their rising star. And they really had shown up. Thousands of Filipino supporters had traveled to London during the tournament. Flights from Manila had filled up. Hotels near Wimbledon were buzzing with fans draped in Philippine colors. Restaurants in the area saw Filipino families flooding in after every Eala victory, ordering food and celebrating together like it was a national holiday. The energy they brought to London that summer was something local businesses and longtime Wimbledon attendees said they had never quite seen before. Palace advisors had noticed. Her matches had drawn viewers who had never watched Wimbledon in their lives. Online engagement was surging. International media couldn't get enough. By honoring Alex, the royal family was also honoring every single person who had discovered this tournament through her remarkable journey. Before she left, there was one final gesture. A beautifully crafted commemorative keepsake, a symbol, they told her, of the enduring friendship that sport can build between nations. She was then invited to sign the official palace guest book. She wrote her message with the same humility she had carried every step of the way. Everyone in that room, according to those present, felt it as she stepped outside the palace gates. A crowd had gathered, Philippine flags waving, handmade banners, voices calling her name. When she appeared and smiled, pausing to wave, taking a moment to actually see the people who had come, cameras captured everything. Within minutes, the images were everywhere. Television, news sites, social media feeds across 2 continents. That single wave became one of the defining images of her entire Wimbledon story. Back home in the Philippines, families sat around televisions and phones watching the coverage together. Children stared at the screen, watching someone from their own country walk out of Buckingham Palace smiling. Parents leaned over and said, "See what's possible?" Schools talked about it. Sports clubs talked about it. Coaches began noticing something in their training sessions. Kids arriving with a different kind of energy. A belief that hadn't quite been there before, because that's what Alex Eala had done. Not by winning the trophy, but by showing up, competing with everything she had, and carrying herself through triumph and disappointment with the same quiet dignity. She had made an entire generation of young athletes believe that the biggest stages in the world weren't built for someone else. They were built for anyone willing to work hard enough to earn their place on them. She didn't leave London as the Wimbledon champion. She left as something harder to define and maybe more powerful. She left as proof that character travels further than talent alone. That humility opens doors that arrogance never could. That one person, playing on the right stage at the right moment, can light something up in millions of people all at once, something that doesn't go dark when the tournament ends. Wimbledon crowns one champion every year. But its greatest stories? Those belong to the ones whose journeys keep living long after the last ball has been struck, long after the applause fades, long after the scoreboards go dark, and in that rarest, most lasting sense, Alex Eala won.